Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you so much for coming and taking the time to find out about the options for your students as they head into, especially the junior and senior year. We've got college in the schools, post-secondary and step high school options that we're going to be highlighting tonight. And we'll be sure to have some time toward the end if you have any questions. I'm going to be speaking on the college in the schools and step high school portion at first here, and then our guidance counselor, Mrs. Kobus, will be speaking a little bit more on PSEO, and then we've also invited a representative from Anoka Ramsey to come and speak with us a little bit about their program. So in case you don't know me, my name is Josh Nyquist, Secondary Program Director. We have a number of handouts in the back. If you haven't had a chance, go ahead and pick those up. We might be referencing them a few times this evening. So I'm going to talk first about Step High School. Step High School is part of the Anoka-Hennepin District. It's one of their high schools, and we've found a way to partner with them to allow our students to take some of their technical education classes in the morning and then come here to PACT and remain a PACT student and take the core classes here in the afternoon. And they're located right off Highway 10 next to Anoka Technical College. In fact, some of their classes are actually offered through Anoka Technical College, and students can even get some college credit for that through that institution. Very close to PACT, within 3 miles, so it's a really good opportunity for our students. They offer courses in architecture, construction, arts, audio technology, automotive, engineering, fashion, cosmetology, health sciences. There's many more than this, in fact. They also offer hospitality, tourism, information technology, law, public safety, corrections, security, manufacturing, nursing, and welding. So students can even, work toward getting a CNA through their nursing program, and they can, work toward getting welding certificates. Not that they would have that when they leave, but they can actually get sort of on that track. So any student interested in those kind of things, it's a great opportunity for them. I've talked to a number of students who've gone there. They've really enjoyed it, and it's been a very, beneficial thing for them. One student even had the opportunity. He was in the automotive program. He brought in his dad's car needed fixing, and he was able to bring it in and work on it as part of his class. So there's just some really cool opportunities for our kids there. And then it's, the real cool thing, obviously, is they can come back and still remain a PACT student, be with their friends, and work toward graduation here at PACT. So in order to go to Step High School, you must be a junior or senior who is on track to meet PACT graduation requirements. It's different than PSEO or college in the schools. You don't have to be ranked in the top half or anything like that. We just have to make sure that you're able to be gone for the portion of the day that you would need to. That you, for example, wouldn't need a Spanish class to graduate, or you wouldn't need a fine arts. Those kind of things can sometimes make it a little more difficult to make the schedule work. But in general, if you're on track to graduate, we count the Step High School credits as electives, and we can make it work in the schedule. So if you're someone who's interested, definitely set up an appointment, meet with Mrs. Kobus to talk more about that and see if you're eligible. So, like I said, it's through Anoka-Hennepin School District, so a student who goes to STEP is actually part-time PACT student, part-time Anoka-Hennepin student. And again, only the morning classes would be at STEP. And if a student's interested in going there, they need to commit to attend all 3 trimesters at Step High School. That's because we're on a semester system and they're on a trimester system. So their first trimester ends somewhere around December, and our semester ends in January. So it wouldn't really work if a student just went the first trimester and then tried to come back at PACT, because we wouldn't be ready for them to start second semester. So really the only way it works is if a student makes that commitment to attend all 3 trimesters for Anoka Tech, for Step High School. Here's just a sample of what the schedule would look like. Step High School starts at a very similar time to PACT, as you can see, 8 o'clock. And students would attend there until the morning, 10:50, be dismissed, and then arrive here just in time for the high school lunch, and then attend the last 4 periods of the day here at PACT. So if a student is needing transportation for STEP, if it's in the morning, the student really does become an Anoka-Hennepin School District student. They would ride their transportation in the morning because they would facilitate that process of getting the student to STEP. If they need the midday transportation, we offered that this past year. However, the board will be evaluating whether or not to include this in the budget for the next year. So we don't know for sure if that'll be offered next year, but we've offered it the last 2 years anyway. And then the student, they're a PACT student, so the afternoon they would ride the PACT bus in the afternoon back home. So for registration for STEP, if you register on the registration forms, which are coming out this week, you would put that as your first elective, and that would help us to know that that's your intent. And then we can also work to let the STEP High School people know how many students they can expect to come from PACT. So again, registration materials are coming out this Wednesday, and then they'll be due a week from Wednesday on the 15th. And kind of just repeating some of the same information I just said. However, if your student is going to STEP High School, you as the parent would need to take the step to contact them to actually do the enrollment. So we of course need to know so that we can work the schedule out so the student takes their 4 courses here in the afternoon. But they actually have to do the enrollment part, and they need your signature and all that. So that would be done with the parent contacting STEP High School. Okay, College in the Schools, our other program we started offering a couple years ago here at PACT, and it's in partnership with Bethel. And our plan for next year is to offer Math in the 21st Century, Pre-Calculus, and Psychology. So each of those are 3 credit courses, and these are courses that students can earn college credit here at PACT with a PACT teacher, and in this case the credit they earn is through Bethel University. So students will earn Bethel University credit with high school credit in these courses, so the student earns both. And each course uses the Bethel syllabus, and it's important to note the curriculum is not approved by the PACT Curriculum Committee. It's curriculum that's worked on through Bethel University and taught by a PACT teacher. So each course is taught here and overseen by a Bethel professor. And interested students will register on their CIS or on their registration forms with the proper CIS courses. That'll be listed if a student's interested in that. And I definitely suggest it for any student, especially going into their junior year, who's just finished Algebra 2, especially for the math. It'd be a really good option just to continue on in that math learning and earn the high school credit. Math can be a very difficult subject, and many of our students are very familiar with Mr. Swanson, and it's just a great opportunity to keep that PACT connection and still earn your math college credit and high school credit. So, like I said, there's credit earned in both. So this chart just shows, how many college credits are earned per PACT credit, how that transfers. Requirements for College in the Schools. If you're a sophomore, you may take the course if you are in the top 10% of your class. And for juniors, top 33%. And then for seniors, top 50%. Now that's class rank. There's other ways to qualify, and that would be through a nationally standardized norm reference test, 80th percentile for 10th graders, 70th percentile for 11th grader, and 50th percentile for a 12th grader. So it'd be tests like the ACT, like the PSAT, those types of tests that are nationally standardized and norm referenced. Other prerequisites may apply for specific courses, so it's important to check the registration guide. For example, the math courses, a student would have to have completed Algebra 2, even if they still have a high ranking in their class, in order to be in the proper math sequence. So the most current ranking after the first semester for next fall, the end of the school year for students starting a spring semester or new students will be determined, or will be used to determine CIS eligibility. So basically, we look at either after this first semester, which we just finished, or after the end of the year. Here's just a chart, and that should be in your packet. It just shows the different weighting for GPA and how that works with college in the schools. So future plans for college in the schools, continue to partner with Bethel to offer the courses that we can through them. We've been working to explore partnerships with other colleges and universities to expand options. Evaluate and work on curriculum approval process for college in the schools courses. We did have a couple courses that we looked at through the U of M that went to curriculum and programming, and the board has decided that it's important to look at our curriculum review process, so we're continuing to evaluate that and make plans for how to make that better as we look at our other college in the schools options. So in general, a more robust college in the schools program would require more staff in a larger facility through expansion in order to make it where we would have more opportunities to keep our students here for college credit. So with that, we'll call up Mrs. Kobus. I want to welcome her. So.
Right. Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay. I want to thank you all for coming. First of all, it's great to see all of you here to learn about these opportunities for your students. For those of you who haven't met me before, again, my name is Mrs. Kobus, and I am the school counselor. So it's great to get to know you all as I continue my journey here at PACT. So I'm going to be talking about PSEO tonight. And the objectives for the PSEO portion include that you will learn about the PSEO program, you'll understand the benefits and risks of going PSEO, you'll learn about the PSEO eligibility requirements, and how PSEO credits transfer to PACT and which classes meet graduation requirements. Also learn what to expect at a college, learn the PSEO admission process. And so, what is PSEO? According to the Minnesota Department of Education, post-secondary enrollment options allow high school students and seniors to take courses full-time or part-time at a post-secondary institution for high school credit. You may also have heard them called dual or concurrent enrollment. So, why should you choose PSEO? One of the reasons is it offers a larger variety of classes, so students can take more of their interests. There's an opportunity for more challenging coursework. One of the best benefits is that tuition fees and textbooks are free, so it can save you a lot of money. And the credits that you earn apply both towards high school requirements and it goes towards your college degree. So, how do you know if PSEO is right for you? Are you self-sufficient? Can you work effectively on your own? Are you doing well in your high school classes? If you're struggling in the classes here, doing PSEO classes will be even more difficult. Do you want the challenge of rigorous classes? Do you read and write well? You will have to be able to put together a cohesive essay. If you are planning to take a PSEO math course, have you completed Algebra 2 in high school? Many of the PSEO classes will require you to have Algebra 2 already completed. Are you planning on attending a post-secondary institution after high school? So if you said yes to these questions, then you would want to look at PSEO. One thing to keep in mind is that transportation is not provided by PACT, which means your student would be required to get themselves to class. Okay? PACT does not provide that. However, students and families who are at or below the federal poverty guideline might qualify for a mileage reimbursement. So PSEO eligibility. Any 11th or 12th grade student can be eligible for PSEO. How many years of PSEO you are eligible for is based on the year you start PSEO. So if you start PSEO as a junior, you are eligible for 2 years. If you start as a senior, you are only eligible for 1 year of PSEO. Students must meet the post-secondary institution requirements, and we'll talk about that in depth a little bit later. And then students also enroll full-time or part-time in non-sectarian classes. So they can't be classes that are affiliated or restricted to a particular religion. Tenth grade eligibility. 10th grade is a little bit limited. A student in 10th grade may apply for post-secondary for a career and technical education course. Okay? They must also have passed the MCA reading with either a standard of meets or exceeds on that test. If your student has disabilities, this requirement may not be required. And PSEO is very limited for 10th grade. As I said before, it is for CTE classes or career and technical classes. It is not for core classes, so your 10th grade student would not be able to go and take their English, math, science courses there. They would still be required to do that here at PACT, so it would just be CTE courses. So if your student is eligible, here are some eligible institutions. All University of Minnesota branches, along with the Minnesota State Universities, community colleges, and technical colleges. There are some private 2- and 4-year colleges that also accept PSEO students. Some nonprofit degree granting trade schools, along with accredited opportunities of industrialization centers in Minnesota, may also accept PSEO students. So the most important thing to remember is that there is a list of eligible colleges and schools on the MDE website that you would want to look at before you decide which school to go PSEO. At PACT, we realize that many of our students like to go PSEO and also continue to participate in PACT and our activities. So an example of a schedule would be a student takes PSEO classes in the morning and afternoon, and then comes back to PACT in the afternoon and evening to participate in activities. The transfer credit ratio. Mr. Nyquist touched on this briefly during the CIS slides, so you could also look back at that one. But 4 college credits equal 1 high school credit. Okay? So 3 college credits would equal 0.75 high school credits, and so on and so forth. So 2 college credits would equal a half of high school credit. Meeting graduation requirements. It is the student's responsibility to make sure that they are meeting their graduation requirements. Be sure that you are taking classes and subjects that meet your requirements, such as your language arts, math, science, social studies. Either a 3 or 4 credit college class will meet the 1 credit requirement in a subject area. For example, college writing and critical reading is a 4 credit college class. That class would equal 1 high school credit in language arts. Intro to literature is a 3 credit college class. That class would equal 0.75 high school credits, but it would count as 1 credit towards language arts. That extra 0.25 would need to be made up through elective courses. A full-time PSEO student credit load must equal the college's minimum, which is 12 credits. And a part-time student, their credit load must equal college credits plus PACT credits, and it must be 3 or more in order to stay on track for graduation. So they would combine their college credits with their high school credits. You must drop at least one high school class period in order to qualify for PSEO. So you cannot take a full load here at PACT and then add on college classes after that. You have to drop at least have one open period during the day here. Here's an example for a student taking part-time PSEO classes. This student has decided to take college writing and critical reading, which is a 4-credit college class, or a 1-credit high school class, and they took it during semester 1. During semester 2, they took the Modern World Civilizations class, which is also a 4-credit college class, or a 1-credit high school class. In addition to their PSEO classes, they took graphic design, algebra 2, Spanish 3, chemistry, and band here at PACT. So in essence, they got 7 credits of high school credit this year. All right, so again, it is important that the student and the families know their high school graduation requirements, okay? And it's important that you know these before you register for college classes so that you know you're registering for the classes that you need. The high school counselor, or the high school in general, decides what meets the graduation requirements. That is not done through the college academic advisor. So you'll want to make sure that you're meeting with either myself to make sure that you're still on track to graduate or know what classes you need to take. In the handouts, there was also the credit transfer guide. That credit transfer guide lists the class that will be accepted at PACT for their respective classes. So under language arts, it lists the classes that would be accepted as language arts at PACT. Students will need to drop or withdraw from an unwanted course. If a student does not drop or withdraw, they will receive an F on both their high school transcript and their college transcript. There is also a deadline for that, so if you do not meet the deadline, you will receive an F. So make sure you know what your deadlines are. Not all courses offered at an institution are eligible for PSEO. Some courses that are not eligible would include sectarian courses or courses that are affiliated or restricted to a religion, classes that have very large fees, and their study abroad programs. Developmental or remedial classes are also not available as PSEO students. Those are the lower level courses that would be expected to be done in high school. And those courses are usually numbered below 1,000. So a couple examples of classes that are not accepted at Anoka Ramsey would include developmental courses, like I said, those courses that are below 1,000. Classes such as skiing, snowboarding, sailing, applied music, and their study abroad program. So, what could you expect from a college class? College classes are fast-paced. Okay, you're gonna go through a lot of information in a very short period of time. If you miss a class, you will miss a lot of information. Professors and teachers have higher expectations of you, and the professors are the ones who set the expectations for the class. The school has nothing to do with that. The syllabi are important to read and follow so you know what those expectations are. College classes classes also have fewer tests, but those tests count for more points. Reading and writing assignments are much more intense. They'll expect you to have proper grammar and sentence structure. Time management is an important skill. Okay, deadlines will quickly approach, especially at the end of the semester, and college professors will not track you down to make sure you hand in an assignment. They will give you a 0 instead. This is even more important for online classes as you have less contact with your professor. So for college classes, 1 credit equals 1 hour of in-class time per week. That 1 hour, you are also expected to do 1 or 2 hours of homework per week. So, for example, if you're taking English 1121, which is a 4-credit college class, you would be expected to spend 4 hours a week in class. You would also be expected to spend 4 to 8 hours that week on homework. So that equals 8 to 12 hours per week for that 1 class. As a full-time PSEO student who is taking 12 credits per semester, they would expect you to spend 12 hours per week in class. They would also expect 12 to 24 hours of homework that week. So in total, they would expect you to spend 24 to 36 hours per week dedicated to those classes. So what should you as a parent know? One of the most important things to remember is that because of FERPA, or the Family Education Rights and Protection Act, parents will need to sign the FERPA form if they want any communication regarding their students' grades. Without this form, you will have no right to information. Even with that signed consent form, professors generally do not like parent communication. If a student is having an issue or has a question, professors expect that the student will communicate that with them. Some colleges do not take attendance. So if you were wondering about your PSEO students' attendance, they would generally not be able to tell you. Okay? The syllabus is a contract between the student and the professor. Students should make sure they read the syllabus. Each class has a different tone and structure, and the school has nothing to do with that. What are the PSEO requirements for admissions? Each college has different requirements, so be sure to check with the college that you are interested in. However, the PSEO admission guidelines set forth by the Minnesota State Colleges and Universities System include, for juniors, you must be in the top 1/3 of the class or rank in the 70th percentile on a nationally standardized norm-referenced test such as the PSAT or the ACT. As a senior, you must be in the top half of your class or score in the top 50th percentile on any nationally standardized norm-referenced test. Okay? Again, that's the PSAT, ACT, things like that. So as a 10th grader, their requirements are a little bit different. 10th grade would need to earn a meets or exceeds on their 8th grade MCAs, but remember that 10th grade is very limited in their PSEO experience. They are limited to 1 career and technical education class their first semester. If they pass that class successfully, they can then take 3 more CTE classes as in the second semester. They still can't take any core courses, which means they are still required to take their English, math, science, social studies here at PACT. So what is the process at PACT to go to PSEO? The first thing you would want to do is let the school know you are interested. So you may have picked up on the back table the intent form, which would need to be signed and returned by May 30th. Students are required to fill out the 3-part PSEO program notice of some student registration form. They need to do that each semester they are a PSEO student. And then they are required to give me a copy of their schedule and their grades. Many of our students like the opportunity that PSEO offers, but they still like to stay involved at PACT. So here are a few ways students do that. They stay connected through weekly announcements and the monthly newsletter through their email. They can attend the monthly class meeting. They should continue to check their email frequently, as I often send stuff that would be important to them, such as graduation requirements, scholarships, that kind of stuff. They can always contact the school with any questions or concerns, and they should meet with me to go over their graduation requirements at least once a year to make sure they're still on track to graduate. This is my contact information if you would like to set up a meeting or if you have questions or concerns. Next up, we'll take a short little break so Abby can get set up, and then she will be presenting for you.
I think what I'll do is yes. Oh, sure.
All right, I'll go ahead and get started. So a lot of what I have, so I'm Abby Hutenberg. I work for Anoka Ramsey Community College. I'm our Director of K-12 Partnerships. So I work with our PSEO students that are on campus, but I also do our college and the schools relationships, or our concurrent enrollment that's out at the high schools. So a lot of our information is very similar, so I will gloss past anything that looks the same. Just reiterating this, we follow the exact same standards that the Minnesota State system does. So it's, as a junior, top third of your class, we're at the 70th percent on some testing. Seniors, top half, 50th percent on testing. This goes into a little bit more. I mean, commonly, I think the tests that you guys would take would be the PSAT and the ACT. If anyone is coming from a homeschool environment very recently, they may have done the California Achievement or the Iowa Basic. And we just require that students have done the tests within the last 2 years, so it's a valid measure of their abilities. These are exactly the same, so I'm gonna skip past those. All right, these get a little different. They're similar but different. Just letting you know that, when students decide to make the change to go to PSEO, the counselor involvement at the high school and the teacher's involvement in the classroom is going to be very different. So here, where your counselors or your teachers may hunt you down, find you if you haven't submitted things, find you if something's going off, your high school, your college instructors will kind of keep a pretty hands-off approach. They are happy to help you if you need any help, but they need you to take that first step because they just simply don't get to know you as well. They may only meet with you 16 to 32 times during the semester, and so it could be in groups as big as this, it could be about half this size, but they just don't get to know you quite as well. And they certainly won't know what your grades were the previous semester and what kind of your average grade is and how you normally perform. So they don't really have anything to go off of. So what they see from you is kind of all that they have to go off of. So just knowing that no one's going to pick up on that, so the students have to be able to pick up on it themselves to know if things just aren't going the way that they typically will go. She mentioned this already. So FERPA, basically we can't release anything about a student to anyone but the student unless they give us signed consent. And to be honest, even if they do a signed consent form with us, like she said, we're happy to talk to you, but to be honest, I don't know a lot of information about what's happening in the classroom. That's really between the student and the instructor. I'll see final grades. At that point, we really can't do anything about it. So it's really critical that you can have the conversation with your student to say, this is going to be pretty much all on you. And if you start to struggle, that is totally fine and that is normal, but come tell someone right away when things start to not feel so good. When, you all kind of know yourselves. You kind of know when things just aren't clicking. You know when you receive a grade that you're not expecting or that you're not used to. That's the perfect opportunity to come in and see someone. And I'll talk about other places you can go. And you're always welcome to come back to your high school counselors too, and they can refer you to somebody on the college campus if need be. But just knowing that it's going to take a lot of student initiative. Okay, they kind of talked about this too, but every class is very different. And so it's going to be critical for students to do the first week of classes or the first day of classes to read through that syllabus. She mentioned dropping or withdrawing classes if students don't want to pursue them. So with the college, students have the first 5 days of the semester, and I don't mean the first 5 times you meet, the first physically 5 days. So if your class, we start on Monday, 5th day comes up on Friday. If your class meets on Thursday, you have to make the decision of whether you want to stay in that class by Friday. So you have the first 5 days to adjust your schedule. Otherwise, you're set in those classes. You have the ability to withdraw from a class, which essentially just means you don't get graded for it, but it will still remain on your transcript. And too many withdrawals can be a negative thing. 1 or 2 here or there is totally fine. But the withdrawal, I'm guessing that when it comes back to the high school, it's not reflected on the student's transcript here. But just know that it will be reflected at the college level. So this is exactly the same, so I'm just scoot past that. Actually, I'm not. So one thing that's a little bit different, I like to say that high school is really the flip of college, or college is the flip of high school, as far as your time commitment and how you're learning. So like she shows up here, this is honestly on the low end of things. If you have a calculus course, you're going to be spending way more than the time that it shows up here to be studying for that class and working on it. Because with the college side of things, you're going to be coming to class for an individual class, probably only 3 to 4 hours a week for that class. The bulk of your learning is happening outside of the classroom. So versus high school where they kind of teach everything to you in the classroom and then you go home and apply it on your homework, it's more like with the college setting, you're assigned readings, you're assigned research to do in advance of the class, so that you're doing a bulk of the learning before you step into the classroom, so that if you don't come to class prepared that day, you're not going to have any idea what's going on. And when you're in class then, you're going to apply that learning a little deeper, ask clarifying questions from your instructor, do projects that are going to intensify that learning. But honestly, the bulk of what you're learning is on your own. And so that's why it's really critical. it's a little deceiving when we say homework is what you're going to be spending that time on. It's just work outside of the classroom. And to be honest, a lot of it's reading, things like that. Also, if you're taking an English course, when you're in high school, sometimes, this is not true of every class certainly, but oftentimes you have a pretty clear picture of what the assignment is and how you're going to write that paper. When you're getting to the college level, they're going to require a little bit deeper thought of you. So it's not simply going to be like, okay, this is what I have to write about. You're going to have to kind of think about, okay, what do I want to write about? What themes did I see come through? So it's not just simply how much time you're sitting in front of your computer typing. There's a lot of thought that goes into it before you do assignments, drafting of things. So that's why it's really critical that students give themselves that time. I did it to myself my freshman year of college. I'm from Wisconsin, we don't have PSEO. And so my freshman year of college, I had 0 study skills. I studied 5 hours a week for all of my classes. So I ran into a situation where it was always the night before. I was like, oh shoot, I was supposed to read something for that class. And then I would get to class and kind of be behind on everything. And then you're just always behind. So it's really critical if you can visualize how those extra homework hours are gonna fit. Because it's really easy to go to class in the morning, go home and be like, I'll do that tomorrow. Then that's even more time you have to catch up on tomorrow. So if I can give you one piece of advice, it really is to visualize that, to budget it out in your week, that you need study time, you need homework time. And reading a chapter once, that's not gonna quite do it. You need to read it twice to make sure you really understand the concepts and have a good understanding. Because at this point, you're leading your learning, and so it's really up to you on how much you're gonna take out of it and the grades you're gonna earn. This is kind of piggybacking off what she said. It's less about how smart are you, it's more about how much work are you willing to put into it and the skills that you have. So the 2 biggest things I see for students to be successful, big one, time management, like I just said. Making sure that you give yourself enough time to be successful. And then number 2, self-advocacy. Again, you need to take that step to us. Every semester I have a student who, one year I had a girl who, it was heartbreaking. Her dad would drive her to class every single day. She would not go to those classes. She'd go home, yeah, everything's fine. Not until the end of the semester, when I sent back her high school grades to her high school counselor, and her counselor then sent them on to her parents, did anyone have any idea that she wasn't going to class. Her parents had driven her there every single day, and everyone was willing to help her, but we had no idea. Obviously the instructor did. And they were alerting us, and we were sending alerts to the student, but the counselors weren't involved, the teachers weren't involved, the parents weren't involved, and it was the student's ability to just ask for help, and we would have been on there right away. So lots of things to help people with, and I'll touch on that in a sec. High school versus college transcript, I just like to give students a heads up. It can sometimes be difficult to keep a really high GPA at the high school because depending on the classes they're taking at the college, they can be quite rigorous, and it can be a lot harder to earn an A in that class than it may have been to take a non-college or non-CIS or AP course, non-AP course at the high school. So just knowing that your GPA may take a little bit of a hit. Generally, when students apply to Nook Ramsey, we see about a dip of about 0.5 in their GPA. So just know that it will dip a little bit. And then the other thing is that the college GPA college transcript stays with you forever. Sometimes students think that this is like test college. It's absolutely not. You're just getting early access to college courses. Those college classes are gonna stay with you forever. I still attach my college transcript anytime that I apply for a job or look at other graduate schools or things like that. So just know that those grades will stick with you. So we wanna make sure that you do really well in them. This is just a note, because sometimes students will come to us like a week before they're gonna be gone for a week and a half and think that that's just gonna be approved, no problem. The college atmosphere, you're not meeting all that often, and so it's really important to be there for those classes that you're scheduled for. So if you're not gonna be able to be there for a long time, a planned absence, you need to work that out with your instructor right away. Some will be perfectly fine with it, they'll let you do work in advance, some won't. We have very different snow days for sure, we really don't have any. But certainly like spring break, we rarely match up with the high schools in the area. So if your family's going on this big beautiful trip to Florida for spring break, you need to determine if you can miss those college courses or if you're going to miss the vacation. And so those are important things that you want to talk about right away, because I've seen students every year forget to tell anyone, and then they just think that it would have been an excused absence. And it won't. This is similar to what she said. I'll just reiterate that Anoka Ramsey has absolutely no idea what the high school graduation requirements are. They're different for every high school, and every high school accepts slightly different classes. So it's really important that every semester you're having a conversation with your high school counselor, you're referring to that, like that transfer guide sheet to show what courses at AR will transfer back, and make sure that you're on top of what high school classes you need in order to graduate. Because we certainly don't want a scenario where you're taking all these beautiful college courses and you don't graduate from high school. That's a nightmare scenario for us. Okay, now more to the nitty-gritty of how you actually go through this process. And I have these guys in the back. In the middle of these, you'll see some information that replicates what's on the screen. But essentially, students will just apply online, and then they need to submit paperwork in order to be evaluated before we would accept a student. So our online application is really easy, and then you're just usually submitting two things. One is going to be that high school transcript. The other is going to be that 3-part PSEO Notice of Student Registration form, which is in the back. That will require a student signature, parent if under 18, and then the counselor's signature here. That's something you'll have to submit every semester so that we know you've checked in with your high school and that you're still on track to be eligible for PSEO. So we would like those documents by April 15th if possible. Every college is a little different. Our final deadline for everything is July 1st, but we really do recommend students do everything by April 15th. That's mostly because you want to notify your school of what your intent is by May 30th, and we don't start registering for classes until late April. So you won't really know what your intent is if you wait until July 1st to submit things. The other piece of that is registration starts in April. By July and August, our classes are picked over, and so you're not going to be guaranteed that, well, you're never guaranteed, but it's really going to be unlikely that you're going to get the college courses you need to match those graduation requirements, so earlier is better. I also do like to make a plug if students are thinking the U of M. The U of M is a really competitive program. They have an earlier application date than we do, but they don't notify students until mid to late June of whether or not they're accepted. So I do recommend students that are thinking about the U have a backup plan just in case. Because sometimes we'll get calls in July and they'll say, hey, I didn't get into the U, can I come there now? And we're already through when our application window is. So give yourself some options. If you start mid-year, we will accept applications until December 1st. Kind of the same thing for STEP. Try and do the same thing all year. We can always work around things if not. It is nice because your schedules align fairly well with us. So we end our fall semester the second week in December, and then we start our spring classes about the second week in January. So as long as that can match up okay with here at the high school, you can do it mid-semester, but it's easier if you can do the same thing throughout the entire year. All right, then this is a little bit, and this is going to be similar for most of the community colleges in the area too. U of M will have a similar option. Once students are accepted, we do need to have them take our placement test, or if they've taken the ACT, we can use those scores as a substitute. So we do the AccuPlacer test. I really recommend that if students are going to do this, that they look up the prep material in advance, because the English is usually fine, but the math test that we do, it's not my favorite, but the math test we do will use a lot of older concepts from students that they may not have had since maybe 9th or 10th grade. And so it's really critical for students to review that. Otherwise, it's going to place them in developmental courses, which aren't covered by PSEO, and then they need to come back to the high school to do their math. So just to note. And then once a student does their application, they've been accepted, they take our placement test, their final thing they need to do with us is to do an orientation session. So at that, it's required for any PSEO student, so you cannot pick out classes and register until you come to this. We'll start offering these in April, but it's a great time for you to come in, Ideally, you've already talked to your counselor, have a really clear picture on those grad requirements, and then you'll sit down with an academic advisor who can help you kind of look through what your grad requirements are and the information you got from the high school, and try and match it with whatever your goals are academically for your college career and beyond. So that ideally, if you're thinking mechanical engineering at the University of Minnesota, we can try and match, the math class you might need for PACT to what works at Anoka Ramsey and also works for the U of M. So we're trying to get you the whole connection. If you don't know where you want to go and what you want to do, we'll make our best guess. Same slide you saw earlier, so I'm going to just get past that. This is the big one. Again, ask for help if you need it. There are so many different resources on campus, but some I like to highlight, and this is, again, true of any community college or university that a student would attend, whether PSEO or an undergraduate student. We have access services, which is if anyone has a documented disability and is working on an IEP or a 504 plan while they're here, that could typically be transitioned, but we do need to set it up in advance. So students need to work with that office. They'll need to send in some materials so that by the first day of classes, we've already sent a note to that instructor to let them know what accommodations can be used in the classroom, and everything's all smooth. Advising is a really critical part of the college experience. The other piece outside of the classroom is tutoring. So we have an academic support center, and so we have free tutors, both peer, so fellow students, and PSEO students can be paid tutors for us. But there's also professional tutors, so people who already have a degree in that field. And it's so critical. It's the students, our best students, who are in that tutoring center all the time. It's our students that are swinging D's and F's that wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. So make sure that you have stopped in there at least once or twice. It's not scary. You walk in, you go to the table with the people that have like the math, if you're going in for math, which I always think is the hardest. But if you're going in for math questions, you just head to their table, sit down, kind of explain where you are in the class, ask a couple questions, get whatever you need. It's not going to be this intensive hour-long tutoring session. And again, it's really not, it shouldn't be viewed as a negative. Again, you're only seeing your instructor once or twice a week. You're going to have assignments in between there. And if you don't understand what's happening in your text because it's new material for you, that's completely normal. It's really easy to pop in and get some clarification on that. Sometimes also we have students that just don't click with their math instructors. They just teach it in a way that doesn't work for them. So going to our tutoring center and getting different views on how they can do different calculations can be really helpful. We have them in other things other than math. We have a writing center, so if you're writing a paper, you can come in and check in with us about best ways to write and source and all that fun stuff. Counseling and advising I already chatted about. If students don't have an idea on the direction they want to go on, they can do some of our career development courses or workshops that we offer. Pretty much anything on campus is open for our PSEO students. Really the only services they wouldn't be utilizing are financial aid at the moment, but certainly if they're a senior, they're starting to apply to their four-year schools and they're uncertain about that, they can use any of those resources. The last thing I like to touch on is just transfer information. That's usually most people's concerns with PSEO. Okay, that's great, it's a college class. Is it gonna work for me wherever I wanna go next? The easiest answer to that is it's completely up to the institution that you're going to transfer to after Anoka Ramsey. For the most part, any schools in the state, we have a pretty good handle on how things transfer, and they usually transfer just fine. And that's true for border schools as well. If you're looking at like California or Florida, we don't have students that transfer there that often, so you may need to do a little bit more research. But schools are usually very open with, yes, this type of class will transfer, no, this one won't. We try and make it easier in the state of Minnesota by doing something called, it's a mouthful, but the Minnesota Transfer Curriculum. It's an agreed upon set of courses between all the Minnesota state schools, so all the community tech colleges and the four-year state schools. So St. Cloud, Mankato, Moorhead, Winona, Metropolitan, Southwest, Bemidji, I think I forgot one. And then all the U of M schools, I'm gonna put a big asterisk next to that. If you're going to the U of M and you're looking at a really competitive math or science-based type of degree, doing this really general curriculum is not always in a student's best interest, because if they do all of their, I don't like to call them easy classes, but their general courses early, and then they transfer to the U for something scary like engineering. Their entire schedule at the University of Minnesota is going to be like math class, engineering, chemistry. There's going to be no room for electives once they get there. So if a student is looking at something really competitive, spread that out. Do some of your hardcore math and science with us, but also, you know, 1 or 2 lighter courses like a history or a art course, so that when you transfer to the U, you're not overwhelmed. But for a degree like psychology or history, that's certainly a scenario where you can take most of your generals in advance and then transfer there safely and finish out in 2 years. And then it also is recognized by some private colleges like Augsburg and Hamlin. I can't think of any others off the top of my head. So that's most of my general information. Yeah. If you guys do have questions, there is an email on the back of this. It's just PSEO@Anoka-Ramsey. It's myself and our applications processor who check it. And so you're welcome to send us any questions about process or about just what it's like at the college as well.
Okay, so we'll open it up for any general questions. Otherwise, we'll all be here for a little bit after if you have anything specific that you'd like to ask us. So, do we have any questions for any of us? Wonderful. We must have done a great job. So, oh yes. Okay, so she asked what's the career and technical ed, the CTE classes?
They're career-oriented classes. So let's say there was a class that was welding 101 that was for a career. You take that class. You can take your English, your math.
Yeah, with Anoka-Ramsey, those are our business, our health courses, our like intro to computer networking, our intro to engineering, and our intro to biomedical. They're nothing that would be part of that like transfer curriculum or anything that you would consider generals. I only have like 5 students that do it a year, so it's not very fun. Because there have to be on-campus classes, so sophomore students typically aren't quite 16 yet. It's just difficult. She asked if the classes are that we have at Anoka-Ramsey are at Anoka Tech. Yeah, the technical options would be wider. They'd have better options, to be honest with you. Community colleges just have fewer technical courses. But yes, that option would be there to take them in 10th grade.
Any other questions? Okay, so again, we'll be up front, and then if you were interested in STEP, we actually have some brochures for STEP High School up front. We only had a limited number of them, so I wanted to make sure they were just for people who were seriously considering STEP High School. So those brochures are up here, up in the front. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, just